Hello networkers, and welcome back to another episode of Ask the Network Engineer, where I will answer one of your questions. And in this episode, we're going to do interview talk number 2. And as I said in the last episode, this one, we're going to be showing you, I'm going to basically change the video here so you see my screen. We're going to do a walkthrough of a resume that I have, and I'm going to kind of show you certain parts what I look at in that resume and what kind of questions I would typically ask that person, and kind of give you kind of how I would answer that if that was asked to me. So let's go ahead and get started in this episode. Okay, so now we're looking at what I'm looking at here on the screen, and this is a example resume. And of course, again, I cleaned it up. So I removed the name, their address, their contact information, even the company that they work for. So I want to try to keep this as very general as possible. So great, I look at this resume and I kind of take note of what kind of things that they're doing. So the very big thing that I see here, which I have highlighted in red, is that they have done a lot of conversions or migrations. They basically have a legacy old analog phone system, and they're moving to a VoIP solution using Cisco Unified Communications, or basically Call Manager. She talks a lot about telephone line conversions, again, from a legacy to Cisco UCM. She talks about experience with planning for a phased implementation to Unified Communication technologies. Talked about complex telephone conversion, which is, again, this migration thing. I see that she has experience with doing adding phones, moving phones, and changes for about 18,000 phones on the campus. So a lot of good information here. So now with this information that I see here, what kind of questions would I typically ask to this person? So with that information and me getting this resume and just kind of walking through it for what it looks like, I would want to determine and ask this person, well, which technology do you focus on the most with your jobs and your experience? So looking at this, obviously this person is going to respond and say voice communications. Well, great. So that means that my questions will be related to your voice experience. And I want to understand the level that they are as a voice engineer. Are they entry level, mid-level, senior, architect, etc.? Or maybe none of the above. So I may ask a question like, walk me through the process for deploying a phone system cluster using Cisco Unified Communications, which is the product that she mentioned that they have experience with, and to support up to 5,000 phones. And that should be easy because this particular environment has about 18,000 phones. So I wait for how they respond. So I would say something like, well, I will be deploying a cluster with multiple phone systems with publishers and subscribers, setting up different UCM groups, things like that. I may ask them a question that on their resume, I see that they mentioned that they do a lot of conversions or migrations from an old phone system to a VoIP phone system. So walk me through the process for how you would do that. So that's another great question that I would ask. But I also ask troubleshooting scenarios to see how do they troubleshoot this stuff. Because it's easy to configure, it's harder to know how to troubleshoot. What kind of steps do you take? What is your troubleshooting strategy? And that kind of definitely tells me where your level really lies at. So one question that I could ask is like, let's say phones are unable to register with the phone system. So how would you troubleshoot that? Now, for me, I can explain that there are many possible causes. One, I will confirm, well, is the phone getting an IP address? Is the phone getting its DCP options? Is the voice VLAN on the switch all set up and configured correctly? Is the TFTP server running that is required in order for the phone to pull its configuration? Is there even a phone profile on the phone system? I'll be saying things just like that, providing kind of a structure of how I will be troubleshooting, knowing about the components that is needed for a phone to be registered. And here is another question. So let's say that there is a report where users can place phone calls to other people just fine, but the person on the other end cannot hear them. So I would tell them, explain the possible causes and tell me how would you troubleshoot that. So again, if that were asked to me, I personally know that that is a one-way audio issue. And usually it is related to a routing issue. So I want to confirm the routing path between the two phones, the voice gateway. So I'll be doing trace routes. I also understand that it's important to understand the call setup process. So there is first the call setup using SIP or the skinny protocol. And then from there, an RTP session is established between the two phones, which is the actual voice conversation. So along that path, I want to confirm that the routing works. I want to check if there's any kind of translations that is happening along that path, like maybe NAT is misconfigured and causing this one-way audio issue. Maybe there is a firewall somewhere, or there's recent changes with the firewall that is blocking anything like that and those kind of protocols. I would ask questions like, is it just with internal calling or is it also with external calling? Because if it works for internal but not external, then maybe I can look towards the voice gateway or even work with the PSTN provider as well. So again, those are the kind of questions I would ask. Now, the main thing that you can tell here based on what I'm asking is the deeper you go, the more that you provide and explain about what I say, like how do you troubleshoot this? What are the possible causes for this? How do you do this migration? It will reveal your technology knowledge on that area. That would tell me that either you are a entry-level, mid-level, senior architect, or none of the above. And the more you provide, the more experience that you have, so you would likely be mid-level, senior, etc. And then from there, I can then align that assessment with what is required for the position. So this here was looking for a, what was it looking for exactly? I think it was looking for a mid-level or a entry-level voice position. So this person has that experience. But again, that's how I do it. I ask particular questions for how do you handle a project? How do you troubleshoot? I'm trying to get you to talk to me about your process. And the more you provide, that tells me more about your knowledge. And from there, I say, great, they are a entry level, but we require a senior level. So that means we might not hire them, but they might work better in this junior position. So those are kind of things that I would typically do. And we're done with this episode. So if you have any questions about being a network engineer or anything in the networking field, whether it is with basic Q&A that you may have, or questions that you may have, interview type questions, certifications, things like that, post that below in the comments and your question will come up in a future episode on this channel. So thank you for watching this video. Please like, share, and subscribe. That means a whole lot. And support us on routhub.net. And until next time, keep networking.